first speaker, Chris Soghoian, has been called by Wired magazine the Ralph Nader of the internet, and it's an apt description because as an investigative journalist who really knows his tech, he has been consistently digging up and breaking really critical stories about how your privacy as consumers is regularly exposed both to governments and to corporations that aren't doing as good a job as they should in protecting your privacy when you go online. He was originally going to talk about that, and that's the title reflected in your program, but recent news led him to decide to change his talk to a new one. I'm not going to give it away, I'm just going to give it to Chris Soghoian.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming here. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about security updates and immunizations. So a little bit about background. I'm a security researcher. I've been doing a lot of stuff about privacy for the last couple of years, but my sort of background is in computer security. And I want to draw some lessons from the bin Laden raid that happened last year and the recent events that we've learned about with regard to the US's cyberwar efforts. So May 1st, 2011, this is a photo that I think many of you have seen from the Situation Room. This is the president and all his staff watching the commandos go into bin Laden's compound in Pakistan. This is what it looked like the next day on the ground in Pakistan. Right? So in the US, everyone was cheering and celebrating the fact that bin Laden was now dead. In Pakistan, people were really trying to figure out what had happened. Many people didn't know that bin Laden was living there. And in the days that followed, one of the big bits of news that people in Pakistan jumped on was the involvement of this man, Dr. Shakil Afridi. Dr. Afridi is a doctor who had been recruited by the CIA to run a fraudulent immunization program. So he was going door to door in the village where bin Laden was found and was surreptitiously collecting DNA of residents there in an attempt to track and locate bin Laden and his family. Right? So there's been a sort of a history of the CIA pushing things in this space with regard to who they pretend to be and who they recruit in the field. And medical professionals don't like the idea that intelligence agents are going to pretend to be them. Missionaries don't like the idea that the CIA might pretend to be them. And certainly Peace Corps volunteers don't like the idea that the CIA might be going undercover as Peace Corps volunteers either, for the simple reason that many of these sort of NGO and public health roles require the trust of the locals. And if people think that you are a spook, they're not going to trust you, and they're certainly not going to let you stick a needle in their arm. Right? For immunization programs to work, you need the trust of locals. There's enough sort of suspicion about some aspects of immunization. We don't need to create more suspicion. And the reason that the US is engaged in immunization efforts abroad is not just out of a desire to help the world, but we want horrible diseases to be eradicated for our own security. We don't want new strains to come into being in these countries. It's better if these horrible diseases are obliterated. All right, well, what does this have to do with cybersecurity, the actual topic that I actually know about? Well, shortly after, a few months after the bin Laden raid, a group of medical organizations wrote to the secretary or the director of the CIA and said, please don't do this. Please do not pretend to be doctors. This doesn't inspire confidence in our field. We need people in remote areas of the world to trust medical professionals and welcome immunization staff into their homes and hospitals and villages. Right? Immunization saves lives. And we really shouldn't be giving people any reason to doubt this stuff. All right, so in the last couple of weeks, we finally learned that the US government has been engaged in aggressive cyber warfare efforts. We've known for some time, or at least suspected for some time, that the US government was behind Stuxnet, which was the largest worm and virus that had infected Iranian computers. In recent weeks, we learned about Flame, an even more sophisticated virus that, rather than spreading all over the world, was selectively targeting individual computers, primarily in the Middle East. So we don't know that Flame was done by the United States. But we do know that Stuxnet was now confirmed to be created by the United States and Israel working together, and recent reports by security researchers suggest that many of the same techniques and security exploits that were used in Stuxnet were also used in Flame. So maybe it's fair to at least assume for the moment that probably the US was behind this. In any case, Flame was a game changer, both because it demonstrated new cryptographic exploit techniques that no one has seen before that allowed the authors of Flame to essentially emulate or impersonate Microsoft. The Flame virus allowed the authors to push software onto the computers of infected hosts as Microsoft. And in fact, the way they do this was they emulated and disguised themselves as the Windows update servers. Right? Every Windows computer now comes with the Windows Update software. Since Microsoft Vista, it's been turned on by default, so consumers don't have to go out and seek security updates. They're enabled by default. This is a good thing, right? The millions of consumers out there that are running Windows 95 and Windows XP who are running vulnerable software, the reason that these consumers are vulnerable to viruses and other malicious software primarily is because consumers don't go out and install security updates by themselves. Consumers are lazy, and we know this. And the way to secure consumers is to ship software with automatic updates enabled by default. So it just happens, right? And the industry has moved towards this. In the last sort of 4 or 5 years, all desktop computers that are shipped, whether they're Windows computers or Mac computers or Linux computers, all come with security updates enabled by default. And this has made things a lot better in the computer security space. I mean, in the mobile industry, security updates are really horrible, but that's because of the mobile carriers who are blocking updates. But on the desktop front, things are great, and most of the consumers who are out there who are vulnerable are running old versions of Windows 95 and XP, but the latest generation is safe. We want consumers to stick with the default settings that come out of the box when it comes to security updates. This keeps them safe. You can see from this graph, it's a little bit complicated, but these colors represent version numbers of Internet Explorer. The message you should take from this is that very, very few consumers are running Internet Explorer 9 or the new version 10. Even though they've been available for some time, there is a large base of installed old Internet Explorer users for the simple reason that many of these users have to go out and seek updates, which most don't do. Microsoft has been sort of begging people to abandon Internet Explorer for years. There's still 6.3% global market share for Internet Explorer 6, which is a browser that's over a decade old with many, many, many known security flaws. Even Firefox, which offers security updates but until recently didn't have them enabled by default, has many, many different versions installed in the field, and approximately 1/3 of Firefox users are running out-of-date software with known vulnerabilities. In contrast, Google Chrome aggressively automatically updates its users, and so within just a couple of days after the release, upwards of 90% of Chrome users are running the latest version of the software. Automatic security updates are a good thing. They keep us safe. And they don't just keep, well, they keep everyone safe. Google now has its Chrome operating system, and this is a laptop and desktop operating system, and one of the selling points of this operating system is the security. The fact that it updates itself automatically. You don't have to go out and do anything. You turn the thing on, and the updates get sent to you, right? Consumers are more secure when we have automatic updates. And consumers who turn off security updates are going to get infected. If we give consumers any reason to not trust the security update process, they will get infected, right? And infected computers turn into zombies, right? Zombies are a technical term. These are computers that are used in botnets. So when someone's computer is infected, it's not just a problem for the owner of that computer, because those computers are then used to attack the rest of us. They're used to send out spam, to engage in denial of service attacks, to engage in hacking attacks, to host fraudulent Viagra selling sites. I mean, whatever the problem of the moment, millions of hacked computers are providing hosting and bandwidth for those kinds of services. And if we want that number of infected computers to go down, we want the internet to be a relatively safe place, we need consumers to use security updates. Unfortunately, people in our intelligence community are thinking in a very short-sighted way. Whatever the short-term strategic advantage to the US government, or whoever's behind Flame, whatever the short-term advantage of hijacking the Windows update process, it simply isn't worth it. We need consumers to trust security updates. And I think the fact that whoever decided to do this went down the path that they did, I think this reflects the fact that no one in Washington owns the issue of consumer cybersecurity. We have a multi-billion-dollar industry of defense contractors ginning up fears about cyber warfare in Washington. Everyone is fighting over which agency will have control over these aspects of cybersecurity, but it's all about defense contractors and critical infrastructure. No one is responsible for protecting consumers' computers. Thank you very much.